Hello and welcome to the PocketGamer.biz podcast Week in Mobile Games, where we discuss the week's news and provide some insights. I'm Craig Chapple, Head of Content at PocketGamer.biz. With me as ever, Aaron Astle, our news editor. How you doing, Aaron? What have you been up to?
Yes, doing well, thank you. Been a fairly quiet week for me this week, actually. No crazy concerts or anything to report on. I think mainly I've still been playing through the new Pokemon like Legends EA, which I'm somehow managing to kind of make it last. I always used to fly through them as a kid, but it's been a month now and I haven't finished it yet, which is good in some ways, making it last.
Is it good? I think you discussed before, I think you maybe weren't sure.
Yeah, so it's better than I was expecting, to be fair. I'm enjoying it a lot more than Scarlet and Violet, was the last game in 2022. I didn't really have very high opinions of that one.
No.
Like, it was just very glitchy, and I don't think the game design was very good, to be honest, because like that was an open world game, but everything still had like a normal level curve, and so you could say, well, that just makes some areas more challenging, but effectively, like you could go to the 8th gym first, but it's a turn-based game based on maths, so you're just going to get destroyed because you're going with like level 10s and they're going to have level whatever the last, it's supposed to be the last bit of the game. And then if you decide later, like, oh, I'll go and do the first gym now, like that's going to have the level 10s while you're in the 50s or something. So it was like they just took the rails off, but didn't build the game around it being open world. So I didn't really like that.
It's kind of pointless it being open world in some ways.
Yeah, because you still basically have to do it in the correct order, but just now you have to Google what the order is.
And I presume you still need like the badges to, unless I got rid of this ages ago, but the badges to be able to have certain level Pokemon as well.
So the wild Pokemon also scale up to the different areas, but if you manage to catch something that's way above where you're up to and you don't have enough gym badges, it won't listen anyway. So yeah, I didn't really like that one. So I'm pleased this one, it's a lot more structured. Like you have side quests and things, but it's by no means an open world game. Like there's actually a pretty good story to it so far, and it's the rails are kind of there a lot more that you have to follow, but it actually feels more like a cohesive game.
I guess I think it sounds good that they tried, though, in a way. I mean, not that makes it a good game, but
yeah, it was like a refreshing experiment. But I think it would have just been so much better if it just checked how many gym badges do you have. If you've got like 3, here's the level of the next thing you're going to go and do.
Yeah.
Rather than just, as I say, it's basically a normal Pokemon game, but there's just no barriers to stop you from going to the wrong place. As I say, some people have defended that of like, well, it just gives you the freedom to try and do things in the wrong order. Like Breath of the Wild let you go and fight monsters that were way too strong for you.
Yeah.
Which I did immediately.
Of course.
But I think it actually works there because you can like learn the attack patterns and dodge stuff and gradually get through it. But I say for something turn-based where like you are going to take a hit every turn in Pokemon.
Yeah.
If they're like 50 levels higher than you, you're just going to lose.
I think the leveling is always quite difficult. So I like in Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, I think that was the world would kind of scale with you. So you level up, everywhere all the monsters get more difficult to beat.
Yeah.
Or more powerful anyway. And I hated that actually.
Oh, right.
Because I think it actually broke some of the missions as well. Like if you happen to go, because it's open world. So, but if you happen to do like one of the earlier like side quests, I think it would just sort of break. I can't remember the example. Something like a farm or something. And goblins turn up, whatever it was. Whereas in Skyrim, I preferred that because it didn't do that. I don't think it just had a proper leveling system.
Right.
And so you would have the areas that you go to that are difficult or easy. Fallout New Vegas I guess it's common, right? But like I remember Fallout New Vegas, it's like that. You turn left, you're gonna have a really bad time.
Yeah.
You turn right, and it's more like they sort of guide you, but you can just go off and do whatever. But I see your point though. It's like what's in a turn-based game about catching Pokemon, and you're gonna die in turn-based battles, and you can't use the Pokemon that you catch.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point?
So I think like it was a good idea. Maybe the next games will be open world again, and they'll do more like level scaling. Anyway,
Just a reminder, you mentioned Breath of the Wild. So obviously at the start, I think it's quite clever because they say like they're almost like challenge you. It's like, oh, don't go over there, I think, or something right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So naturally you go to the horrible bits, which I actually fits really well with the sort of oppressive world. I went to Ganon's castle, managed straight away. Is it Ganon's castle? Is the castle?
Yeah.
And I got in, and then I scaled the whole way up. It took ages, obviously, because I'm so weak. I scaled all the way up, and turns out if you get to the top, you then fight Ganon. But you fight one after the other, all of his forms that you would fight throughout the game.
Yeah, and you presumably had like some sticks.
Yeah, well, you pick up like some stuff while you're up there, you know, if you can kill some enemies. But it's like kind of like one hit kill kind of situation. It would just like you have like 3 hearts or whatever. I managed to beat like 2 or 3 of the forms, and then there was one. It was just like, this is impossible. It can't be done. But I feel like I could have completed the game.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a nice little thing that they give you. Like, if you do get up there, it's not like nothing happens. You get something for your hard work, I guess, which is instant death. Right, thanks for that, Aaron. I guess as for myself, shout out to Video Games Industry Memo. It was by George Osborne. I was at his mixer yesterday, which was fun. Nice to meet some new people and catch up with some old folks in the UK games industry scene. So I had a great time. Right, a few shout outs, or one big shout out, I guess, really, is Pocket Gamer Connects London is on January 19th and 20th. You can catch some deals at the moment if you're going to go. So if you want to grab a discount, please do. And we are about to announce the top 50 UK game makers list, which we did for the first time last year. We'll bring it back this year. It's very much like our top 50 mobile game makers, but it focuses on UK game makers and all platforms. So keep an eye out, and if you want to be considered for entry, please do fill out the form, and maybe you'll be in it. Right, so we got a few bits of news. So last week we had expected this news. It might even break while we were recording last week. But the thing that happened was Ubisoft delayed their financials, and everyone was wondering why this would happen. And it took about a week to get any information on it. And when Ubisoft finally released its financials, I think it was on the Friday, it was like an accounting problem. There's like speculation it could be. It's like to do with Tencent. Maybe the deal's collapsed. Maybe Tencent's going to buy it. For some reason, that caused a delay with their financials. Although I guess that would have been odd in itself. So the company's newly appointed panel of auditors asked the firm to restate its 2025 accounts to recognize a meaningful partnership deal. So said this led to the company not complying with its leverage covenant ratio under certain existing financing agreements. This being addressed with funds from the Tencent deal, which is now closed. Ubisoft resumed trading on the stock exchange, released its financials. So it was kind of like a bit more boring than I think everyone thought it would be. But I guess the other news is, we've spoken about it before, but Tencent has completed its investment, 1.16 billion euros into Ubisoft. So that kind of carves out a whole new subsidiary, which is called Vantage Studios, which is still majority owned, I guess, by Ubisoft. I think so. Tencent specifically has a 26.32% economic stake in Vantage Studios, while Ubisoft retains full control of the entity. Both companies have signed a shareholders agreement based on the terms outlined in March. And this entity basically has their top IP, which is Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. Apparently, this is part of a new structure, so there will be other parts like this. I don't know what they would house. I guess technically there are still other IPs like Rabbids, etc. It feels a bit. On the one hand, I guess it's good for Ubisoft because it gives them more money to make their games. As we all know, they've struggled somewhat over the past couple of years. But I guess if you're one of the studios, it's kind of worrying, especially if you're not part of this new subsidiary. The thing that I'm still mostly confused about is this this whole restructuring, etc. It all just seems like a really strange way to stop Tencent having to make an acquisition. So, under French law, if you acquire a 30% or more stake in a company, you have to make a mandatory takeover bid. So before this, or currently, I don't have it in front of me now, but Tencent owns a just under, I think, 9.5% stake in Ubisoft. In this new subsidiary, as I said, they now own a 26.32% stake in Vantage Studios. I don't know how they work this out. It feels like it's above. It should otherwise be above 30%. So they've done some weird sort of accounting stuff, and I guess it has passed muster under the law because that deal has gone through. But it's kind of a strange one. I guess ultimately it's probably good news for Tencent, right? Because at some point they could just well own all of this IP, and it feels like it's going to move in that direction. But we'll see. The Guillemets have not wanted to relinquish control at all ever, so I guess we'll see what the future holds there. But I hope for better times ahead for everyone at Ubisoft. Any thoughts, Aaron?
Mainly, as you said, like it was the anticipation of what the delay was for. It's like last week when you kept checking, is it out yet? It's going to drop while we're doing the podcast, and then it was like we kind of wrapped up at about 10 to 6, I think, last week. I bet it's going to be, by 6 o'clock, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
Doing all this speculating of what it could be. And it's like, it didn't happen at 6 p.m. It's like, well, it has to be by like 9 a.m. tomorrow. And then I think it was at like 8:30. Or yeah, 7:30, 8:30.
So
like
8:30 UK time was the investor call.
All right.
And I think it was around 7:30-ish was when the financials were released.
So really, like, quite close up to
the
time limit. So it's like, this could be big news, and then it's just an accounting thing.
Yeah, right. So, Aaron, what's the next story?
Yeah, so next from me is a Roblox story, which is that Roblox's CEO, David Baszucki, had quite a heated debate, I would say, about child safety. This was on a podcast interview. And they kind of pressed him a bit about child safety stuff, because obviously there's been quite a lot of, I guess, criticism and concern around child safety with Roblox and lawsuits and things. So yeah, they asked him about it, basically. And it was quite a tense interview of just him kind of, obviously, he said stuff like, child safety is like enormously important. Roblox, they want to preempt risks, and he did talk about things like their new AI, like facial detection stuff that they're going to be rolling out, which is supposed to basically categorize players by age so that like adults don't end up talking to children. But as well as covering what they are doing, yeah, it was just quite a fractious conversation of talking over each other a bit, like interrupting each other. There's a part where it's like the New York Times asked about predators, like navigating filters and like getting kids off Roblox. Yes, there were parts where basically he said like he just didn't want to comment on it. They raised so Hindenburg Research last year released a report which accused Roblox of compromising child safety. Rather than explaining ways in which they were wrong, he just said that Hindenburg went out of business, quote, for some reason. And then he asked whether the interviewers had done their own research or if they were just quoting someone else's. And then they kind of said we can tell this is kind of frustrating you. And then he said, I'm not frustrated. It was a bit of a strange one to watch, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd quite go as far as to say he was dismissive of the concerns, but just it clearly, he a few times as well said he wanted to talk about other stuff and he thought he'd been invited on to talk about other things. And then I think the interviewer said it had been discussed that this would be one of the topics. And just overall, a bit of an awkward watch, really.
I think some people have been saying this is like a gotcha from the journalist. They've just got in there so they could catch him out, etc. But as you said, in the interview, and also it's worth people checking out Casey Newton's newsletter that went out after this. It's his podcast as well. And he's just we reached out, when we reached out to the PRs, we asked if we could get them on the show and talk about child safety and AI, basically. So it's not a gotcha, this is what we were going to do, and you came on the show. And then he didn't really want to talk about it too much. And he obviously wasn't prepared. Now, I guess it's whether the PRs, prepared him for that interview. Maybe they did, right? We don't know. he seemed unprepared or just didn't want to answer them. But it's just like, it's such an important topic that he has to be prepared. And if he'd have given actually better answers and had been so combative, I bet this segment, we wouldn't all be sat here talking about it, right? He would have answered these questions pretty like easily. I'm not saying it's an easy discussion, but had he been prepared, and frankly, Roblox deals with this every day. They should be able to answer these questions. It wouldn't have been such a big deal. It's just the way he came across, and it does come across. And this is what Casey Newton touches upon in his newsletter, really, of like someone. Even if this is not what he meant, it does come across as someone that didn't actually really care. It's like, yeah, it happens, but it's like, okay, you are running a massive platform of like say 100 million users, whatever. Yeah, and yeah, there are going to be bad actors there, right? But the fact is that people are looking closely at this. It's been banned in a few countries, and I know they're doing a lot, but they've just got to be on it in their comms about it and make sure they put across how much they care and just say all the good stuff that they're doing. There was no gotcha for me. It was just he didn't do the interview well. That's all. And then actually, that worst possible outcome for them because now all the eyes are on it again. Yeah, it wasn't very good at all. I think it's always easy to just blame the journalists, etc. You brought me here. I thought I was going to talk about this when he probably knows that wasn't the case. Anyway, he's just. I mean, when people start attacking journalists, I don't think that. I mean, I'm not saying a journalist is always right, etc. But in this case, he's just doing that to try and deflect attention away from the shocking job that they've done for this interview. We'll see if it impacts Roblox moving forward. In terms of any maybe investigations that are ongoing, other countries looking at banning it, they might look at that kind of thing and be like, well, they're not really that serious. The other thing I did want to say, I remembered now, was that one of the things that was touched upon, and I think people are forgetting, is yes, Roblox is doing a lot now. I think the core of the issue actually is that when Roblox was scaling, did it do enough for a long period of time? And I know you can't go back and change that, but the fact is that some of these measures that are brought in now, could they have been brought in years ago to help protect children that have suffered on the platform to predators? And I think that was the core of the issue that I think he just wasn't really grasping. And it's that whole maybe kind of Silicon Valley thing. This is what was touched upon in the newsletter. It's just like they're in their own bubble, these tech CEOs, and he's just thinking about kind of this big growth story, and thinking a bit about child protection. The question was really like, are you trying to scale really quickly over child protection, or were you putting child protection first and then trying to scale? And the way the interview has come across now is it looks like scalability first, child protection second. But when it comes to kids, maybe it should be the other way around. Yeah, the platform's still not profitable. So those are my thoughts. So moving on to the next one, a fairly short one from me, but I was doing the soft launch list update. So check that out, Top Games in soft launch. We try and update it every week or two. And I just noticed how many IP games are in soft launch at the moment, and which I think probably says a lot about the mobile games market. So if I just run through these that we've got, so the Sims Lab Town Stories and the Sim Lab Life Together. That's actually quite hard to say. I think those are actually just like experimental things, but it's interesting. And I know that I think long term they are going to put another Sims game on. Was it the Sims Mobile recently shut down, but the Sims Free Play is still available? Sony's got Ratchet and Clank Rage Rumble. There's Minecraft Blast, Hill Climb Racing Free, Angry Birds Match World, Angry Birds Rush, Monopoly Go Chat, which is an app. That's interesting. Temple Run Free, big old IP there. Tom and Jerry Blast, which is Steer Studios / Savvy. They've got a big IP there. Coin Master Board Adventure, actually, which is obviously based on Moon Axe's Coin Master, but a bit more like Monopoly Go. And they've also got a Whole Stars puzzle game, which has the pig mascot as its app icon. You've got Sonic Blitz, Game of Thrones Dragonfire, Tetris Block Party, Subway Surfer City, Roomscapes, and CSR Streetcar Racing, CSR Free, Streetcar Racing, and Plants vs. Zombies Free is back. And then there's some other stuff that's kind of cooking. There's a Jetpack Joyride racing game. And maybe it speaks to where we are in the market. Years after kind of ATT and user acquisition is really expensive. How do you stand out? And companies want to make more of their IP now, and I think that's all coming together. And we've seen a lot of companies leverage their top franchises to kind of stand out on the store. And obviously, we even had that recently. It's shut down now, but Supercell for Squad Busters once again was trying to rely really. Was was trying to utilize its most famous characters in a game that ultimately failed. And now it's got Boat Game, which doesn't have those. But I just wanted to point it out. It was a really, really interesting time on mobile for the top companies. There is new IP as well, but there seems to be a big go for either bringing these from other platforms or reusing older IP and kind of bringing it back. So, Aaron, what's your next story?
Yeah, so next from me, I guess speaking of IPs, so Royal Kingdom, which obviously a Royal Match was already huge. But Royal Kingdom has just celebrated its first anniversary and has made just over $300 million between Google Play and the App Store, according to AppMagic estimates. So obviously this is Dream Games' kind of follow-up title to, and according to the estimates, Royal Match made $296.4 million in its first year. So Royal Kingdom actually did 2% better than it. Again, these are based on estimates of like their first year. So, I would say that's a pretty strong start for it. The game spent like 19 months in soft launch in places like the UK, and then expanded and went global on November the 1st last year into some places that have ended up becoming quite like key markets for it. Like the US is now its most lucrative, which was also Royal Match's biggest market. Yeah, so obviously, like the two, like comparing their first years, they've performed very, very similarly. There's only 2% difference between them, which obviously, like Royal Kingdom, has likely had some expensive marketing campaigns because they've had like celebrities like Shakira advertising the game. So I'm curious which one would end up being the more profitable from the first year. Obviously, these days, like Royal Match is a multi-billion-dollar game, but yeah, like looking at their first years, and then also, as you're saying, like IPs. Obviously, Royal Kingdom has kind of had the advantage of Royal Match already being a thing, like an established brand, which possibly helped it. But then, like Royal Match, maybe had a more captive audience because it came out in 2021 during the pandemic. So it's kind of, I think it's quite interesting that there are quite a lot of different factors at play for each game, and yet they did basically the same in their first year. It should also be noted for Royal Kingdom that revenue's like trending upwards. This October was its top grossing month so far at 43.6 million, which was a 14% rise month over month. Generally, I think other than September this year, Royal Kingdom's revenue has like scaled up every month since it went global. Obviously, November's not finished yet. So, it certainly, the trend looks as though this is just going to carry on and steamrolling and getting bigger and bigger. So obviously, it's not been as we talk about some games that make like $1 billion in a year, like Pokemon Pocket and stuff. Obviously, when you compare it to something like that, it's not a gargantuan success, but it certainly seems like it's building into one, and maybe by next year we'll be talking about it having hit $1 billion, or maybe not, but currently, as I say, it's very much on that kind of trajectory to just keep growing, and has grown for a full year essentially. So well done to Dream Games.
Yeah, I think they've done a great job. I mean, obviously, like you said, very expensive, those celebrity marketing campaigns. So I'm curious just how profitable it's been so far. But it is still growing, and I don't see why it won't continue into next year. I mean, it seems like a solid performer, hasn't taken anything away, seemingly, from Royal Match.
Yeah, I was about to add, actually, that like Royal Match hasn't really taken a hit. So it seems like, I guess maybe people are just playing both, or it's new people playing Royal Kingdom, or like it hasn't. Royal Match hasn't kind of gone down by 300 million that Royal Kingdom's made them. It actually grew by another 1% in the year since Royal Kingdom's come out.
It feels like the Candy Crush Soda Saga to Candy Crush Saga. Right? It's very similar, and yet they're both kind of make good money. I guess what Dream doesn't want long term is like the King situation, where they were releasing new Candy Crush games with kind of less revenue each time. We don't know that's going to happen necessarily with Royal Kingdom. It's not quite there up with Royal Match yet. But yeah, the next one, I guess we'll need to not show that same kind of decline. Turkey's where it's all happening right now. Can kind of trust in the talent that they've got there, the expertise in building these systems of these games. Yeah. They're really good for Dream games. And then you've got another story, another anniversary.
Yeah, it's a bit of a theme this week. So Infinity Nikki's first anniversary is coming up next week on December 5th. And yesterday, as of recording, so the 26th of November, they just launched the big version 2.0 update. So yeah, just ahead of the anniversary. So it seems like quite a big update. Like there's overhauls to exploration, combat, customization, even how the game controls, whether that's PC, PlayStation, mobile. They've all had updates into the UI and things. There's new abilities with Nikki. There's low gravity movement and grappling, and also a gigantification power. There's new locations to explore. It kind of feels a bit like the kind of Genshin Impact formula to me of every year brings this big new version, X point update that adds new areas and things to do. So Infold Games have framed this as the most expansive evolution in the series' history for Infinity Nikki. And I think it's an interesting case to me, this one. This has made 70 million on mobile in nearly a year, according to AppMagic estimates. So a smaller success than Royal Kingdom compared to the last story. But as always, I'd be quite happy with 70 million. But it is an interesting case. It's done, I think, now in the context of Love and Deep Space from Infold Games. It looks like quite a sort of small success because Love and Deep Space just kind of blew up and made over 400 million in its first year. But when you compare it to the Nikki series more broadly, which I guess was, maybe they still consider it the flagship for Infold, or whether they do think it's Love and Deep Space now, I'm not sure. But so Infinity Nikki kind of landed in the middle. It had a smaller first year than Shining Nikki, which made just over 100 million. But it did better than Love Nikki. So yeah, kind of in the middle. But it is worth noting that Shining Nikki and Love Nikki both were exclusive to China for their first year. So Infinity Nikki beating Love Nikki is on the basis that one's global and one was only in China. If you actually look at the revenue Infinity Nikki's made in China, then it's lower than Love Nikki. On the other hand, you have factors like this being a cross-platform game. So you got presumably the revenue from PlayStation and PC that probably pushes it back above, and maybe more than Shining Nikki as well. So it's kind of hard to judge exactly how well the game has done because of that cross-platform aspect and just the kind of different landscape it's launched in and the global versus China situation. So it makes it a bit complicated to really kind of definitively say how well it's done for a Nikki game. I think we can still say Love and Deep Space has just kind of blown expectations away in a way, really.
I played Infinity Nikki, and I just didn't. When I initially played it, I didn't really like. There's a few things I didn't like. I thought the onboarding wasn't particularly great, and the onboarding lasts for a fair while as well. So it is in the opening part. But it sounds like they've made a lot of changes since then. So I think it seems to be doing perfectly okay. They're definitely giving it massive promotion. They're at events, they're at Gamescom with a big booth just for Love Nikki, as well as a separate one for Love and Deep Space. So I say Love Nikki, Infinity Nikki,
Yeah.
and then a separate one for Love and Deep Space. Yeah, it seems to be doing fine. It's not. Yeah, like you said, not everything has to be like a Genshin Impact. And hopefully it's profitable, and all the money that we don't see that it's probably making in China, I'm sure is very, very lucrative indeed, as in off the App Store or Google Play, but on other Android stores. Right, we're going to leave it there. So that brings us to the end of the PocketGamer.biz podcast week in mobile games. Thank you everybody for tuning in, as always. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron, for all your insights today.
Yes, thank you.
And it was a great show, and we'll see you all again next week. Have a good one. Goodbye.